Really took on a pretty big challenge trying to do my speech in French. So, I wrote it and I researched it and I practiced it like crazy. But, then I watched everybody like talking 1,000 miles an hour up there, receiving their awards. And I was like, I'm dead.
They thought this would never surface again. A night carefully crafted to celebrate brilliance and legacy suddenly took on a far more mysterious tone. What should have been a straightforward tribute to Jim Carrey at the Caesar Awards in Paris quickly transformed into something the public was never meant to question. As cameras flashed and the atmosphere buzzed with admiration, Carrey stepped forward and delivered part of his speech in French, a rare and deliberate choice that on the surface seemed like a respectful nod to the audience. But almost instantly, attention shifted. According to whispers online, it wasn't what he said, it was how he looked, how he moved, how it felt to longtime viewers who thought they knew him. The internet began dissecting every second of footage. People are saying his face appeared smoother, his expression slightly delayed, his energy unusually controlled. Some insisted his eyes looked different under the lights, while others pointed to subtle changes in his jawline and teeth, claiming the timelines don't quite add up. Old interviews resurfaced, side-by-side comparisons flooded comment sections, and suddenly what should have been a celebratory moment became a digital investigation. The more you look at it, the less it looks like coincidence. At least that's what online communities began to suggest. But is it really just perception playing tricks, or something deeper that fans can't quite explain? Adding fuel to the fire, discussions about Hollywood's inner workings resurfaced, especially comments from figures like Cott Williams, who has openly questioned the industry's hidden dynamics. While his remarks remain unverified and often debated, they created the perfect backdrop for speculation to grow. Some began connecting dots that may or may not exist, suggesting that behind the carefully curated image of global celebrities lies a system the public rarely sees. Why is certain transformation so sudden? Why do some public figures seem almost reintroduced? And why did this particular moment trigger such an intense reaction? Of course, official sources confirmed that Jim Carrey was present, honored. Observers expected the same unpredictable energy that defined his earlier career, but instead noticed subtle shifts that quickly became the center of attention. His movements appeared more measured, his facial expressions slightly restrained, and even his gaze seemed unfamiliar to some viewers. Social media didn't just react, it dissected.
I wrote it and I researched it and I practiced it like crazy. But, then I watched everybody like talking 1,000 miles an hour up there, receiving their awards. And I was like, I'm dead.
Clips of his red carpet walk and stage presence were analyzed frame by frame, with people pointing out what they believed were inconsistencies. A jawline that seemed slightly altered, teeth that didn't quite match older interviews, and a voice that carried a softer, slower cadence. The timelines don't quite add up, some claimed. Others went further, suggesting the performance felt unusually controlled, almost as if it had been carefully constructed.
Every fake news is saying you are not Jim Carrey. That's true or not? Please.
But is it really evidence of something hidden, or simply the evolution of a public figure under intense scrutiny? As speculation grew, many began revisiting Carrey's past interviews and philosophical reflections, moments where he openly questioned identity, fame, and the nature of reality itself. These resurfaced clips only added to the intrigue. Why did certain posts mysteriously disappear? Why do some fans feel like they're watching a different version of the same person? The word clone began circulating in comment sections, not as a confirmed claim, but as part of a larger narrative fueled by curiosity and skepticism. Of course, there is no credible evidence supporting such theories, and official sources confirm his presence at the event. Still, the questions refuse to die. Some discussions even drew loose connections to broader conversations about Hollywood's inner workings, occasionally referencing voices like Cat Williams, who was previously spoken about the industry in ways that sparked debate. While those remarks remain unverified and widely interpreted, they created the perfect backdrop for online theories to thrive. The more you look at it, the less it feels like a simple coincidence, at least through the lens of those already questioning what happens behind the scenes. But why now?
What began as a subtle shift soon turned into something far more difficult to ignore. Because the more people revisited the footage, the more unfamiliar it all started to feel. Jim Carrey, once known for his explosive, chaotic humor, appeared at the Caesar Awards with a presence that felt quieter, more measured, and at times almost cryptic. To some, it wasn't just growth, it was a transformation that didn't quite align with the version of him they had followed for decades. Fans began searching for patterns, revisiting old interviews and speeches where he questioned societal norms, hinted at hidden structures, and spoke in ways that many described as unusually philosophical. According to whispers online, these past moments suddenly carried new weight. Online communities dissected everything. Clips were slowed down, expressions analyzed, and tone compared across years of public appearances. The timelines don't quite add up, some claimed, pointing to what they believed were subtle but meaningful differences, not just in appearance, but in energy. Was it simply aging or something more layered? The more you look at it, the less it feels like coincidence to those already asking questions. Some interpreted his shift in demeanor as a natural evolution, while others suggested it aligned a little too perfectly with broader narratives about public figures who challenge expectations. But is that observation grounded in reality or shaped by the stories people want to believe? Theories began to multiply, drawn from long-standing cultural fascinations with doubles, identity, and the idea that influential voices might be reshaped behind the scenes. Of course, there is no verified evidence supporting such claims, and many point to far more grounded explanations. Changes in lighting, camera angles, or even subtle cosmetic adjustments can dramatically alter how someone appears, especially under the scrutiny of high-definition footage. And Carrey's more introspective tone aligns closely with his recent.
What if the real story was never about what changed, but about why people felt the need to explain it at all? The reaction to Jim Carrey at the Caesar Awards reveals something deeper, something rooted in the psychology of how we see celebrity itself. High-profile figures don't just exist as people, they exist as symbols, carefully built over decades. And when that symbol shifts, even slightly, it creates a kind of tension that audiences feel compelled to resolve. For Carrey, the contrast between his earlier high-energy, unpredictable roles and his more recent reflective, philosophical presence makes every small change feel amplified. Something just doesn't add up, some viewers say. But is that because something is hidden or because expectations are being challenged? Online communities, driven by pattern recognition, began connecting dots, sometimes where none may exist. Theories like the so-called clone narrative emerged, not as confirmed realities, but as expressions of a deeper need to turn uncertainty into story. According to whispers online, ordinary variations in appearance suddenly became clues, and natural evolution was reframed as something far more deliberate. At the same time, Carrey's long history of questioning Hollywood systems, media structures, and the nature of fame itself added fuel to the speculation. His past interviews, where he spoke about distraction, perception, and control, were pulled back into circulation. Why did certain clips resurface now? Why do his words feel different when viewed through today's lens? The more you look at it, the less it feels like coincidence, at least to those already searching for hidden meaning. But reality remains grounded. Official sources confirm his presence, his speech, and the recognition of his career. There is no credible evidence supporting the more extreme interpretations, and yet the intrigue doesn't fade, because it isn't really about proof, it's about narrative, a familiar figure.
What if the real mystery was never about a clone, but about how quickly perception can turn into belief? When Jim Carrey appeared at the Caesar Awards, audiences didn't just watch, they interpreted. And as people are saying, interpretation is where everything begins to shift. We see the world through expectation, and when something doesn't align perfectly with what we remember, it can feel dramatic, suspicious, even orchestrated. Online communities took that feeling and ran with it, dissecting clips, looping footage, comparing expressions across decades as if hidden answers might reveal themselves under enough scrutiny. But is it really discovery or the mind trying to make sense of something unfamiliar? In these digital spaces, even the smallest details take on new meaning. A change in lighting can alter eye color, a different mood can soften facial expressions, a more reflective tone can slow the rhythm of speech. Yet, according to whispers online, these ordinary variations became something else entirely. Evidence, clues, fragments of a bigger story. And because Carrey has always walked that line between humor and deeper commentary, it becomes easier for some to blur performance with reality. The more you look at it, the less it looks like coincidence, at least through the lens of those already questioning. But why are they hiding this, or are we projecting patterns that were never there to begin with? Of course, the grounded reality remains unchanged. Jim Carrey was present. He delivered his speech, and he was honored for a lifetime of work that shaped generations of entertainment. There's no credible evidence supporting claims of replacement or cloning. And yet, the fascination refuses to fade. Because this was never just about one appearance. It became a mirror, a reflection of how we assign meaning, how we connect dots, and how quickly imagination can fill the gaps left by uncertainty. Zoom out, and a larger pattern begins to emerge. When any public figure shifts, whether through age, style, or demeanor, audiences instinctively search for explanations. In Carrey's case, that shift feels more pronounced because of his journey.
Still, the intrigue lingers, because when someone like Jim Carrey, who has spent decades blurring the line between performance and authenticity, appears different, even slightly, it creates a space where imagination thrives. And in that space, the line between reality and interpretation begins to blur. So the real question isn't whether something extraordinary happened, it's why so many people feel like it did. In the end, what if this was never really about Jim Carrey at all, but about us? His appearance at the Caesar Awards in Paris didn't just spark curiosity, it exposed something deeper, something the public was never meant to question so openly. Because when a familiar figure behaves even slightly outside of expectation, the reaction isn't neutral, it's amplified, exaggerated, and often mythologized. According to whispers online, what began as subtle differences quickly evolved into full-scale narratives where perception blurred into belief and speculation started to feel like discovery. But is it really about hidden truths, or the stories we instinctively create to make sense of change? Beyond the individual moment, this situation reveals the powerful intersection between media, fame, and audience interpretation. In a world saturated with images and constant exposure, even the smallest shift becomes magnified. Carrey's evolution from unpredictable comedic energy to a quieter, more introspective presence makes every gesture feel loaded with meaning. His expressions, his tone, even the way he pauses mid-sentence, all of it becomes something to decode. Online communities thrive in this environment, where clips are replayed, analyzed, and compared across decades. Old footage resurfaces, timelines are questioned, and suddenly, ordinary human variation is reframed as something far more mysterious. The more you look at it, the less it feels like coincidence, at least to those already searching for answers. And then there's the context that adds another layer. Carrey has spent years blending entertainment with deeper commentary, questioning identity.
And maybe that's the real takeaway. In today's media landscape, celebrity moments are no longer just events, they're cultural mirrors. They reflect our expectations, our doubts, and our fascination with the unknown. Carrey's Paris appearance didn't just spark theories about him, it revealed how quickly perception can transform into narrative and how easily narrative can take on a life of its own. So the final question lingers long after the camera stopped rolling. Are we uncovering something real, or are we watching the power of belief reshape reality in real time?
What if the biggest clue was never in his face, but in the way we chose to see it? The fascination surrounding Jim Carrey reveals something far more complex than a single appearance at the Caesar Awards. It exposes how intensely we monitor public figures, searching for meaning in every glance, every pause, every subtle shift. Fans didn't just watch, they analyzed. Eye color under different lighting, slight changes in facial expression, a softer vocal tone, details that on their own seem ordinary, but together begin to form a pattern in the minds of those looking for something more. According to whispers online, nothing is ever just coincidence. But is that instinct uncovering truth or creating it? Carrey's decades-long career blending humor with deeper commentary only intensifies this effect. When someone who has openly questioned identity, media, and societal structures begins to evolve in visible ways, audiences don't just accept it, they interpret it. His more measured persona, his carefully delivered speeches, and his philosophical tone create a sense of ambiguity that the public can't quite resolve. And that ambiguity becomes the perfect breeding ground for speculation. The more you look at it, the less it feels simple. Why does his presence feel different now? Why do old interviews seem to carry new meaning? The questions that refuse to die aren't rooted in proof, they're rooted in perception. Of course, reality offers grounded explanations. Theories about clones or impersonators, while widely circulated, remain entirely unsubstantiated. Scientific understanding does not support the kind of replication suggested in these narratives, and many of the perceived differences can be explained by natural factors, aging, lighting, performance choices, or even subtle stylistic changes. But here's where it gets interesting. Even when explanations exist, they don't always satisfy curiosity, because for many, the intrigue lies not in what is confirmed, but in what might be hidden. Why are they hiding this? Or are we simply filling in gaps with imagination?
Online communities play a powerful role in shaping this narrative. Clips are replayed, compared, and debated endlessly, creating a feedback loop where speculation feeds on itself. Carrey's past critiques of Hollywood, his reflections on media influence, and his philosophical outlook become pieces of a larger puzzle, one that some are eager to assemble, even if the picture isn't entirely real. The timelines don't quite add up, some claim. Others insist the differences are too precise to ignore. But again, is this evidence or expectation reshaping reality? What emerges from all of this is something deeper than any single theory. It's a cultural mirror, a reflection of our collective desire to uncover hidden truths, to question appearances, and to believe that there's always more beneath the surface. Carrey's Paris appearance becomes less about him and more about the audience, about how we construct narratives, assign meaning, and blur the line between observation and imagination. Because in the end, the actor himself may only be part of the story. The rest is built in real time by viewers connecting dots, revisiting the past, and sharing interpretations that grow with every retelling. The clone theory, despite lacking any credible evidence, is just one example of how easily perception can evolve into belief when supported by context and curiosity. And that leaves one final question lingering in the shadows. Are we witnessing something extraordinary, or simply watching the power of narrative take on a life of its own? What if the reason this story refuses to fade is because it was never really about Jim Carrey in the first place? The narrative surrounding his appearance at the Caesar Awards resonates because it taps into something much deeper, our collective fascination with control, secrecy, and the idea that unseen forces might be shaping what we see. According to whispers online, moments like this feel bigger than they should, as if they're hitting at something just beneath the surface. But is it really a hidden truth, or the human tendency to search for meaning in uncertainty? Because when you step back, the grounded reality remains clear. Jim Carrey did appear at the event. He delivered his speech, in part in French, and he was honored for a lifetime of work that left a lasting mark on entertainment. Official sources confirm every detail, and yet the perception of difference, whether in appearance, demeanor, or energy, sparked a wave of interpretation that quickly took on its own. The more you look at it, the less it feels like a simple moment, but that doesn't make it something extraordinary. In many cases, what people noticed can be explained by natural factors, aging, lighting, stage presence, or even subtle stylistic changes. Still, why did it feel so different to so many? That's where the power of narrative comes in, because audiences are not passive, they actively construct meaning. Every gesture becomes a clue, every expression a signal, every pause something to decode. And when someone like Carrey, whose career has blurred the line between comedy and deeper commentary, enters that space, the effect is amplified. His history of questioning identity, media, and perception creates a backdrop where even ordinary moments feel loaded with significance. Why now? Why did this particular appearance trigger such a reaction? The questions that refuse to die don't always come from facts, they come from interpretation.
By the time the discussion spread across online communities, the moment had already transformed into something else entirely, a cultural phenomenon. Clips were replayed, compared across decades, and analyzed frame by frame. People began connecting dots, revisiting old interviews, and building narratives that extended far beyond the event itself. Some speculated about hidden agendas or unseen influence, while others pushed back, pointing to grounded explanations. There is no verified evidence supporting the more extreme claims, and yet the fascination persists because it speaks to something bigger than one actor or one night. It speaks to how we process the unexpected. In the end, this story becomes a mirror, not just of celebrity culture, but of us, the audience. Our need to question, to interpret, to dramatize, and to find patterns even when none may exist. The intrigue isn't just about what we saw, it's about what we believe we saw, and that distinction changes everything. So now the question turns back to you. When you watch those clips, when you notice those subtle differences, what did you really see? Was it simply evolution, a natural shift shaped by time and perspective, or did it feel like something more? The answer might say less about him and more about how we all see the world. If this made you question what's really behind the images we consume every day, make sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below, because the next story might make you look at everything differently.